Single mom paid for a coffee for a strange man, and the next morning a helicopter landed at her house. What he did to repay her kindness will shock everyone. A single mom who paid for a coffee for a strange man at a corner cafe never wanted attention. But the next morning a helicopter landed at her house, and the neighborhood froze. She thought it was a mistake, a stunt, a cruel joke. But why did the strange man know her name, her street, her struggle? If a single mom's small kindness bought a coffee, why did a helicopter land at her house to repay it? And what could a stranger possibly do that would shock everyone, including her? Callie Rhodes didn't know the strange man's name when she slid her chip debit card across the cafe counter and said, "Put his coffee on mine." 16 hours between the hospital billing office and the graveyard shift at Whitaker's Diner had left her smelling like sanitizer and burnt toast, but kindness didn't wait for a payday. He stood in a dark field jacket despite spring sun, eyes the color of weathered steel, posture careful like someone relearning how to stand still. He patted his pockets as if the cost of being human had changed overnight and he hadn't been told. "Medium Americano," Callie said. "And if you've got one, blueberry muffin." "You don't have to," the man murmured. "Single moms do a lot we don't have to," she said. "This one's easy." They drank at the window bar. School buses turned dutifully through the intersection. Her receipt became a tiny paper crane. His gaze kept drifting to it like a compass. When he finally said Rowan, it sounded like a secret returned to circulation. She offered a Callie and waved off repayment. No payback necessary, just pass it on. He considered her the way people study exits. "Maybe I already owe you more than coffee," she smiled. "The practiced kind you make when bills are due," and went home to patch the porch screen with masking tape her 8-year-old Nova, decorated with marker stars. She handled insurance forms until the words blurred, fell asleep on the couch, and dreamed of quiet places where helicopters did not exist. At 7:06 a.m., a sound she'd only heard in rescue videos tore the morning open. Mugs rattled. Curtains quivered up and down Marigold Court as neighbors turned their kitchens into press boxes. Callie flung the door wide. A graphite helicopter hovered over the cul-de-sac and then settled like it had measured the asphalt yesterday. Wind flattened her sweater to her ribs and ripped the paper crane from her pocket. It kite-danced into sunlight. A side door slid open. 2 men in navy windbreakers hopped down, scanning house numbers. A third followed. Rowan, no field jacket now, just a charcoal suit that fit like certainty. The haunted slouch was gone. He moved with the contained force of someone used to rooms where numbers, not voices, decided outcomes. "Callie Rhodes?" he called over the rotor thrum. She stood on the porch steps that always warned of splinters. "Rowan?" He jogged to her fence, hair disciplined by product instead of rain. "I owe you coffee interest," he said, almost smiling. Mrs. Palermo at number 5 whispered, "Is this a movie?" Mr. Keene at number 2 muttered FAA rules to nobody. Nova appeared beside Callie, barefoot, teddy bear under her arm like a security badge. Rowan's glance flicked from the loose railing to Nova's toes to the patched screen door. Something in his expression steadied. "May I come in?" Inside, the house wore its honesty openly. The hand-me-down couch, thrift store table, a homework volcano on the hutch. Nova angled behind the couch, peeking. Rowan crouched. "Hi, Nova, I'm Rowan. Your mom saved me yesterday." "With coffee?" Nova asked. "With kindness," he said, like he was testing the word on his tongue. Callie folded her arms. "Who are you, really?" He exhaled as if stepping into his own name. "Rowan Pierce." The syllables hit like a headline. Cloud software, disaster recovery, the founder who vanished after rumors of a crash and a boardroom coup. In hospital collections, Callie read vendor invoices like weather maps. Pierce Systems lived there often. She looked from him to the helicopter to the windbreakers with stitched serials and quiet authority. Not bodyguards, pilots, and lawyers. "Yesterday I needed to be nobody," he said. "Today I need to repay you properly. Not with spectacle, though, yes, this is a lot, but with something that lasts." "I'm not for sale," she said. "We don't do fairy tales on Marigold Court." "Good," he answered. "This isn't a fairy tale. It's a fix." He set the rescued paper crane on the coffee table and smoothed its wings. "You kept me from making a mistake," he said. "You reminded me the world isn't just term sheets and hostile memoranda. I've been sleeping in an empty hangar outside town, waiting to see which of my partners would notice I'm still breathing." He nodded toward the insurance forms. "You work in hospital finance. You know, numbers can be weapons, collections, she said. Numbers also pay for nurses. They also corner people, he said quietly. I let mine corner me. A windbreaker man stepped in, murmured, withdrew. Rowan's jaw said, They think I'm gone. Your coffee bought me 5 minutes to choose something besides anger. What do you want from me? Callie asked. To repay your kindness, he said. Start with your roof, the railing, the HVAC that sounds like a tractor. Then, if you'll consider it, something professional. Memorial bought licenses from my company and never used half the features. I want to fund a pilot that wipes out medical debt for families under a threshold, automatically, using our audit trails and AI. I need someone who knows billing trenches to design it so it can't be gamed. You. You flew a helicopter to talk about medical debt? Her laugh came out brittle. I flew because a single mom paid for a coffee for a strange man, and the next morning a helicopter landed at her house. The least I can do is make sure it means something. Nova slid her hand into Callie's. Mom, she whispered. He knows about roofs. Callie smelled turbine fuel and budget citrus from hotel soap. Outside, the neighborhood filmed the rumor. Inside, 2 tugs wrestled, skepticism that had kept her safe since the divorce and possibility that sounded like Nova's laugh. Show me ID, she said. Then coffee. No cameras. No speeches. Rowan produced a wallet, a corporate badge, a phone crowded with secure tokens. The congruence of man and headline held. Okay, she said. Coffee, then the roof. The helicopter idled like a restless promise. The paper crane waited between them, proof that ordinary kindness could still tilt a fortune. Rowan stayed, not as a spectacle but as a presence that fit into Callie's small kitchen like a new variable in an old equation. He took his coffee black, scanned the chipped mug like it had a provenance, and listened while the HVAC shuddered through another cycle that ended with a cough. From the porch, the helicopter idled like a patient animal. Neighbors pretended to take out trash for the 3rd time. Callie slipped into motion. The automatic choreography of a single mom's morning, packing Nova's lunch, checking homework, signing the field trip form that cost $15 she didn't have. Rowan stood when Nova spoke, crouched when she asked a question, and began without announcement to fix what was broken. He tightened the loose cabinet hinge with a coin, wedged the wobbling table leg with a spare felt pad from his pocket, and texted someone in short, precise bursts that sounded like chess moves. Roof inspect today. Permit pull. Local crew, same zip, no media. What do you do when you're not paying for helicopters? Callie asked, rinsing mugs. I build systems that notice what people miss, he said. Then I try to make them impossible to ignore. Like debt that stalks you across 3 jobs and a divorce, she said, and regretted it, the rawness of it. Like a cafeteria line where a kid pretends he's not hungry, he replied. I watched it every day in a school that taught me to code but not to afford lunch. He told it unadorned. A mother who cleaned offices at night and taught him to read spreadsheets before adjectives. A father he didn't know beyond an army photo. A scholarship to a state school that came with a job wiping hard drives. The first startup built in a storage unit. The first acquisition he walked away from because the term sheet required silence about layoffs on Christmas. Callie felt her skepticism rearrange itself into wary respect. You vanished, she said. The news said plane crash, then a statement from your board that felt like a condolence card to a living person. I needed to see who they were without me, he said. And who I am without them. His mouth thinned. Valerie Klein thinks short-term. She believes margin is a god that accepts any offering. I built us to be flood-proof, not heart-proof. She hired a firm to reposition me. They suggested I stop showing up in jeans. Callie snorted. That's the fix that always saves the world. Wardrobe doesn't change governance, he said. But governance can change whether a hospital writes off a grandmother's bill or sues her house. She looked at the stack of notices clipped with a binder clip repurposed. From Nova's art. I've been that file. It's not just the number. It's the letters that use your whole name like it's an accusation. Rowan's phone chimed. He glanced, smiled without warmth. Klein wants an emergency board meeting at 9. She'll be furious I've scheduled one at 8. He set the phone down, palms open. Come with me. To a boardroom? To a hangar first. Then a room where men who haven't been told no in 5 years will learn to pronounce forgiveness without choking. Callie stared. The last time she'd boarded anything with a rotor was never. The last time she'd walked into a room designed to make her feel small was yesterday. She felt the faint tremor of hazard that comes when life offers you a lever and asks if you're willing to place your weight on it. Nova has school, she said. I arranged a car, he answered. Miss Dahl from next door offered to watch her after. You trust Miss Dahl? More than I trust helicopters, Callie said. But when Nova clapped at the word hangar, the equation shifted. Ms. Dahl appeared like a herald with a casserole and a grin that said, go. In the helicopter, the city unfolded into a grid of decisions. Callie watched the hospital shrink to a stack of shadows, and the river write its own policy through downtown. Rowan spoke into a headset with a calm that made turbulence sit down and behave. Legal will scream HIPAA, he said. So we designed the pilot to operate on de-identified data and authorized rules. We use the hospital's own charity care criteria. We automate it so no manager can bury an approval, because his bonus depends on collections. We audit every keystroke. We publish the rules. And we build an appeals channel staffed by humans who answer like neighbors. Identity resolution? Callie asked, surprising herself with the fluency she'd learned from years of vendor pitches. People get mislinked. Lana Morris becomes L. Morris becomes Lewis Morris, and a warranty company chases a dead man. We'll require dual verification, hashed SSN plus insurance member ID, and an override only when two separate validators. One human, one system agree, Rowan said. We won't erase balances. We'll retire them with proof. Think of it like sunsetting code with a version history that anyone can audit. And the people who trained your models? She asked. Are they the people who've ever held a second job to cover a copay? Rowan glanced at her, the helicopter's hum drawing a line under the moment. They will be, he said, starting with the person who pointed out the question I wasn't asking. The hangar looked like a movie location, matte floors, a conference area inside a glass cube, a hum of servers like distant bees. A whiteboard bore loops of markers, arrows, thresholds, something that looked like a heart monitor. People stood when Rowan entered in a way that wasn't formality exactly, but relief. A woman in her 50s with close-cropped hair and a navy blazer stepped forward. Finally, she said, you're done playing ghost? Almost, he said. Callie, this is Harper Wynn, our general counsel. Harper, Callie Rhodes, Hospital Collections. She's here to tell us when our good intentions will accidentally break the law. Harper shook Callie's hand with the firmness of someone who'd argued judges into changing their minds. Thank you for the coffee, she said wryly and then softer. And for the courage to walk into this circus. They worked through the skeleton of the pilot. Callie noticed how men who might have spoken over other women did not speak over Harper, and how Rowan's silence had weight that encouraged, rather than chilled. They debated thresholds, 300% of federal poverty level, 350 with regional cost of living modifiers. They mapped fraud vectors like cartographers of a coast they refused to let pirates own. In a pause, Rowan's face shifted, the private thought intruding. My mother would have liked you, he said to Callie. She died with a balance that a hospital forgave after sending 5 letters that could have paid the power bill if they were checks. I'm sorry, Callie said. She taught me to build tools, he said. I've spent 10 years selling them to people who prefer locks. The 8 o'clock board meeting assembled itself on screens, executives in glass rooms, names like brass plaques, Valerie Klein, CFO Dax Rudd, Director Colin Yates. Valerie's smile carried threat like perfume. Rowan, she said, welcome back to civilization. We were concerned, I noticed, he said mildly. Good morning. I've initiated a client covenant clause. Section 11.3 allows me to amend product scope without your approval. When the amendment addresses systemic harm documented by external regulators or credible media. Medical debt meets the test. Valerie's smile cooled. We sell disaster recovery to enterprises, not charity programs to neighborhoods. Disaster is not limited to servers, Rowan said. Ask any family sued for a broken arm. Dax cleared his throat. Shareholders, Rowan. Story beats earnings this quarter, Rowan answered. But if you need your business case, here it is. Regulatory tailwinds, brand moat, payer partnerships, reduced churn, ARR expansion on moral grounds. Also, I signed the documents. Valerie's eyes cut to a second screen, a lawyer out of frame shaking his head. You can't be serious. I am, Rowan said, and the stillness in him made it clear. If they pushed, he'd break something they needed. Callie watched the vector lines of money and power intersect. She felt the old heat of shame, the kind that comes when you're the poorest person in a room and found it didn't fit. She was here because she'd bought a coffee and refused to treat that like a debt owed by her to a billionaire's grace. She raised her hand. Nobody in a board meeting had ever called on her. Rowan did. Collections, she said. If you design this without us, we'll sabotage it without trying. Put frontline staff in the room. Ask us where the skeletons live. If you want to shock everyone, including me, make it impossible for a single mom to be punished because she didn't understand a form. Valerie's expression registered. For the first time, a flicker of something like calculation. And you are? Someone your invoices know by name, Callie said. And the person your customers will thank if you do this right. Rowan didn't smile. He didn't need to. Harper, draft the amendment. We launch the pilot at Memorial in 30 days. Callie, will you lead the Debt Pathways work group? I'll try, she said, because promise felt dangerous on her tongue. Don't try, he said gently. Build. Outside the glass cube, the helicopter waited, a reminder of arrival. Inside, a story rethreaded itself through old wounds. Somewhere on Marigold Court, a patched screen door let in more morning than it used to. Rowan's 8 a.m. coo rippled through the day like a dropped stone that refused to stop making circles. By noon, Callie was back at Memorial, not behind the glass at the billing window, but in a windowless conference room that smelled like whiteboard markers and old coffee. A placard on the door read, Revenue Cycle Task Force, as if someone had tried to make a burden sound like a sports team. Harper sat at the head of the table with a stack of draft language. A data lead named Priya Shah opened a laptop tattooed with stickers, FIR HL7, plain-spoken warnings about scope creep. Two nurses in scrubs still inked with shift notes introduced themselves as Alicia Kim and Hector Vale. Callie recognized one other person immediately, Leon Jaspers, the hospital's director of patient finance, a man who shook hands like pens are more powerful when they click. Ms. Rhodes, Leon said, measuring her like a problem set. We appreciate your enthusiasm. Mr. Pierce left quite an impression. Helicopters tend to. Callie kept her chin level. Helicopters take off, she said. Rules stay. Harper's mouth twitched, almost a smile. We're here to write the rules. They began with stories. Alicia described a postpartum patient who took a taxi home because she didn't want to pay for an extra hour of observation. The taxi driver had to turn around when she fainted on her porch. Hector told them about a dialysis patient who missed 2 sessions because his car died, and the bus route lost its funding last year. His balance accused him the next week by mail. Priya sketched an architecture that respected the privacy labyrinth and still moved. Hashed identifiers, eligibility engines, thresholds that breathed with cost of living. Callie drew the ugly map, the one she knew by heart, of where good intentions died. Collections tied to manager bonuses, denial codes used as punishment, charity care approvals sitting in review until a quarter ended. We bury approvals when the numbers look bad, she said simply. Not because we're evil, because the spreadsheet says survive. If this pilot depends on heroics, it will fail the minute the hero leaves. Leon clicked his pen. And who will pay for balances we forgive? Mr. Pierce's generosity has a shelf life. Rowan plans to endow the program with its own ledger, Harper said. A trust that pays out on rigid rules no executive can massage. We'll publish monthly reports. And, this is important, we will not use this as a marketing funnel. No cameras in waiting rooms, no commercials with violins. Leon looked at Callie. And your role? Make sure the rules survive contact with our habits, she said. And put frontline staff at the front. Harper slid a draft across the table. We call it the Jubilee Protocol, she said. Working title. The first paragraph was simple enough to survive lawyers. For patients under 350% of FPL, with balances older than 90 days and clinical encounters coded non-elective, retire the debt in full. Do not transfer accounts to third-party collectors. Do not sue. Do not report to credit bureaus. Do not charge interest. Document the retirement as a credit from the endowment trust, not as an internal write-off, to prevent clawbacks against department budgets. Appeals allowed when edge cases are obvious to any reasonable neighbor. Any reasonable neighbor, Alicia repeated softly, as if the phrase had been smuggled in from a better world. While they debated, Callie's phone trembled. A call from unknown. She declined. It pinged again, text bubbles that braided anxiety with curiosity. Group chat Marigold Moms, is he still there? CNN just said local mom with a blurred photo of your door. Is this safe? A girl, are you okay? She answered only one, safe, busy, will explain. She didn't owe the internet anything. She owed Nova a roof that didn't tremble in the wind. By 2, Valerie had fired her first shot. An email arrived at Harper's inbox from a firm whose signature block was longer than a paragraph, warning that Pierce Systems' charitable pilot could create unintended contractual conflicts with existing enterprise clients and catastrophic reputational exposure if fraud occurred. Harper forwarded it to Rowan with a note. As predicted. Rowan replied in a single line. As designed. At 3, a reporter called Callie directly. Ms. Rhodes, Reggie Halperin, City Ledger. I'd love to hear how it felt when the helicopter landed at your house. Our readers care about the human angle. We hear you're a single mom. Callie's cheek went cold. My daughter is not your angle, she said and hung up. She turned to Harper. This is going to get ugly. Harper didn't sugarcoat. It will. The story we're writing threatens stories that pay salaries on television. They'll call you naive, then they'll call you calculating, then they'll ask who you're sleeping with. Put Nova first. We'll put the law between you and the wolves. Callie thought of the day the wolves first learned her name. Nova was 3 and feverish with a strep infection that wouldn't quit. The clinic charged her as out-of-network because the insurer listed her married name at an address she'd left. The bill shape-shifted from number to threat over 6 months. Then a man called at 7:15 a.m. and told her he would ruin your credit so hard your child will learn about consequences. She had never wanted to tell anyone that story. Now, telling it might save someone else. Rowan appeared in the doorway as if the thought had summoned him. He had shed the suit jacket for a worn Oxford. His tie hung loose, a truce with oxygen. Board signed the amendment, he said. Valerie abstained and then scheduled a second meeting for 4 to reconsider. She's calling it governance hygiene. Translation, Harper said, stall and scratch. Rowan looked at Callie. Do you still want in? It'll get worse before it gets better. Callie pictured Nova's cereal bowl in the sink, the patch on the porch screen, the paper crane on her coffee table. She pictured the cafeteria line Rowan had described, the kid trying to be invisible next to a window that let in daylight for free. Yes, she said. I want in. They built until their brains went gummy. Priya wrote pseudocode on a whiteboard. If income, threshold, and encounter, type ED, INPT, OBS, and insurer, exhausted, untrue then retire debt, then circled it and wrote, but humans. Alicia suggested a quiet ceremony when a balance died. A letter that said what had happened in 12 words and none of them threatened. Hector offered to train volunteers to sit with patients and explain that mercy wasn't a trick. Near dusk, Rowan walked Callie to the parking lot. The sky was the color of a hospital blanket, practical, not beautiful. A black SUV idled at the curb. Ms. Dahl had texted a photo of Nova doing homework at her kitchen table with a cat named Milton supervising. The safety of that image made Callie's breath catch. Rowan saw it and looked away to give her the privacy of not being watched when she blinked back tired tears. You don't owe me anything, he said, as if answering a question she hadn't asked. The coffee, that was the debt I owed. This, he gestured toward the building, the servers humming their invisible hymns. This is me repaying my mother, and any kid who learned to measure worth in overdue notices. Callie nodded. You do understand that when the helicopters leave, I still live on Marigold Court. I know, he said. That's why the second thing I did today was call a roofer from your zip code. He's coming Saturday. No cameras. Just shingles. They stood there an extra beat, not for romance, but for recognition. The way 2 people measure the same horizon and agree that it's worth walking toward even if the map has dragons. Callie's phone lit again. This time it was from an old contact she hadn't expected to see again. Eric Maddox, Nova's father. The preview showed one line. Saw the news. We need to talk. She felt the past step into the present like a man who never knocks. Problems? Rowan asked lightly. An old one, Callie said. He smells money and custody filings. Rowan didn't offer a solution. He did something stranger. He trusted her competence. Tell me where to be useful, he said, or where to get out of the way. She slid the phone into her pocket and exhaled. I'll let you know. As she climbed into the SUV, a gust toppled a stack of flyers in the vestibule. Fundraiser for Mrs. Ellis cancer treatment costs. Callie picked one up. smoothed the creases and looked through the glass at Priya erasing the whiteboard. Jubilee, Harper had called it. A word that belonged to people who, for once, didn't need a miracle to afford a Tuesday. Saturday dawned with hammers, not headlines. A local crew swarmed Callie's roof while Nova handed up water like a tiny foreman. Callie kept waiting for the world to blink and reveal fine print. It didn't. The paper crane watched from the window ledge. By mid-morning, Memorial's printers spit letters that didn't threaten. Priya's rules compiled. Harper's clauses held. Rowan's signature hardened into policy. Envelopes carried the same 12 words Callie insisted on. Your medical debt has been retired in full. No action required. A small crane watermark hovered in the corner like a promise folded to travel far. Alicia texted a photo of Mrs. Ellis clutching her letter. Fundraiser flyer forgotten. The wolves tried anyway. Valerie's favorite reporter called it a Silicon Savior complex. Eric arrived on Marigold Court in his job interview. Shirt with a lawyer who smelled like contingency. Fees. I'm concerned about Nova's environment. Eric told the judge on Monday. Strange men landing helicopters, exposure, spectacle. My daughter needs stability. My daughter has stability, Callie said. Calm because she'd rehearsed truth until it didn't wobble. A roof that doesn't leak. A bedtime that respects second grade. People who keep promises. The helicopter brought a work meeting. The work removed debt suffocating our neighbors. The only spectacle is you using a child to sniff for money. Rowan sat behind her, present, not performative. Harper had arranged pro bono counsel who argued with metronome efficiency. The judge, who'd seen every flavor of petty, eyed Eric's exhibit list, blogs, and blurry screenshots, no school report. Motion denied, she said. Weaponize publicity again and we'll revisit custody. Outside microphones lifted. Callie said nothing and walked to the curb where Ms. Dahl hugged Nova like a shield. Rowan kept step but left space. At the SUV, he said, You don't owe the story to anyone who didn't buy the coffee. That includes you, she said. That especially includes me, he answered. The second shock arrived not with rotors, but with bylaws. In a bare studio, Rowan recorded a 10-minute statement Harper released after markets closed. Pierce Systems had converted to a public benefit corporation with a charter to reduce catastrophic household debt. He transferred a controlling block of voting shares to a trust bound to that mission, and one board seat would be permanently reserved for a community representative elected by frontline staff from partner hospitals. The trust named itself the Crane Foundation. Its first grants funded legal help for predatory liens, bus vouchers for dialysis and translation, so consent forms stopped behaving like traps. Its first convening invited billing clerks and janitors to speak before executives. The community seat went not to Callie, she refused the spotlight, but to Alicia, who spoke about postpartum taxis and courage. Rowan found smaller ways to repay the original debt. He retitled the helicopter Paper Crane and grounded it from stunts. He funded a robotics club anonymously. He brought home a thrift store telescope that needed a screw. He and Nova fixed it with a coin at the kitchen table where the wobble had once lived. The big way arrived last. On a gray Tuesday, the hospital lobby filled with the quiet thunder of relief. Callie stood at a folding table helping a man named Luis read his letter. He kept touching the paper like it might dissolve. They always want something, he whispered. Not today, she said. Today they retired it. He looked up at the skylight like someone had opened it wider. Why? Because a single mom paid for a coffee for a strange man, Callie said, surprising herself. And the next morning, a helicopter landed at her house, and he decided repayment should look like policy, not favors. When she stepped outside for air, Rowan stood on the steps, sleeves rolled, rain dotting his collar. We launched in 3 more counties, he said. Our enemies will adapt. So will we, Callie said. We're good at triage, he hesitated. 1 more repayment, a job. Director of Patient Pathways. Salary, hours that still let you be Nova's mom. Authority to say no to anyone, including me. You already gave me the most important no, she said. The one I can use on anyone who tries to make my kid a headline. She glanced back at the lobby where 1,000 stories were untangling. The roof didn't leak. The table didn't wobble. The helicopter, grounded from spectacle, had become a tool. She thought of the paper crane and the way it held its shape because someone decided to be careful. Yes, she said. I'll take it. That night on Marigold Court, neighbors gathered under new shingles and old stars. Nova pointed the telescope toward a smear of light and named it. Callie watched her daughter learning to look up without flinching and finally, allowed herself to do the same at last.